Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Before we get into that, as usual, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it if you can. And for those of you that are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. It really helps with the algorithms. But before we do that, before we get into any of the proper games, how you doing, Ant?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. Early recording this week on a Monday, fresh. So yeah, a lot of football to analyse and football to look forward to. So you've got games coming thick and fast now, don't we?
Yeah, it's gonna be hectic between now and Christmas, I think, as it always is for Premier League games, which will be great. But also with European games too. I believe there are European games this week, right, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that'll be interesting to see some more football and finally have a break from the international break, which I know we all hate on this podcast. So anyway, let's get into the games. We're going to start first with Ipswich Town against Man United. This was at Ipswich's ground. It was, as I said, Ruben Amorim's first game as Man United manager, head coach, whatever you want to call him. And it obviously ended up as a 1-1 draw between the two teams. It was a decent game, especially the way it started. So I'll just quickly run through kind of what happened. Obviously, within the first, I think, 90 seconds, you had a great run from Amad Diallo down the right-hand side, who started as kind of your right wing-back. And a nice little cross into the box. Keeper probably could have done a little bit better, but Rashford manages to get ahead of him at the front post and tap it in, really, for what is a very, very quick start to Amorim's campaign as Man United manager. From there, it kind of dulls down a little bit. You know, there are good chances on both sides, really, but it just comes down to it that neither side can really finish their dinner. And Onana is playing out of his skin and manages to make an unbelievable few saves, especially to stop Liam Delap, who's been on fire recently. Then you obviously see a goal out of the blue, I think. I don't think you can really say it was an excellent opportunity or chance, really. I don't think in this day and age you can even call it a chance. But Omari Hutchinson slaps one with his left foot, gets a deflection, I believe. Can't remember off of who, but manages to kind of take a little bit of a change in trajectory and go a little bit higher, and manages to go into the top left corner, beating Onana. You know, I think he even managed to get a finger on it, but there's still nothing he can do about it. And it goes to 1-1. From there, again, it's a lot of the same, and it ends up being a 1-1 draw. And obviously, for some Man United fans, it kind of burst the bubble a little bit around some of the excitement with Ruben Amorim. But obviously, he came out very well after the game too, talked about it, was very open and discussed a lot about his tactics and how he sees the game. So very insightful game, and he definitely looks like a very insightful manager. So let's start off, Ant. How did you see the game going? Do you think you deserve to win, lose? I mean, I think the XG ended up being in Ipswich's favour, but that doesn't necessarily always tell an accurate picture of the game. So how do you think it went, and are you happy with the point?
I think in the end, I'm happy with the point. I think it was a fair result. If you look at the XG, Ipswich obviously had more like shots on goal and forced a few more saves out of Onana than we did Muric. But we had a bunch of 2-on-1 counter-attacks where Garnacho in particular spurned them in the end, making the wrong decision, waiting too long, holding onto the ball for too long. So in some ways, it was quite similar to the last 6 months of Ten Hag, really. Not a huge amount of problem in terms of creating opportunities, but a lot of bad decision-making, and a lot of players choosing the wrong options when they do get into good positions. So it was quite frustrating in a lot of ways, but I think a 1-1 draw is probably about fair because, like you said, Onana made some really good saves. I think he made 2 good saves from Delap, another one from Chaplin. So yeah, if you look at probably the bigger opportunities like on goal, I think Ipswich were probably deserving of the win. But if you look at the amount of times we broke on them and had 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, and could have potentially had a really big goal scoring opportunity if we made the right final decision, I think that was leaning much more in our direction. So it was probably just about fair. But now, man, it was an interesting match to watch. I don't think it was the highest quality. I think Amorim's analysis of the game at the end was pretty much spot on. I haven't really. I mean, this might be me drinking the Kool-Aid really, really soon, but I think a lot of the things he said both like pre-game and post-game have been pretty spot on. And I don't think it's like been sugarcoating anything or selling us dreams or whatever. I think he's pretty much just called it how he's seen it, which I think a lot of United fans have been doing for a while under Ten Hag, and a lot of rival fans have probably been doing, but maybe with a little bit extra sauce or a little bit extra vim that you normally get with rivals. But I think he analysed the game fairly well. Like a lot of his, a lot of players did look a bit confused. I think some players took to it like a duck out of water, but some people clearly were struggling. You could see, like he pointed out, Evans struggling to play in that left centre back space, not pressuring people, not closing people down. But to be honest, that should be expected. I don't think Evans should play in either of the wider kind of centre back positions. He's probably most suited to the centre back position. So that was kind of obvious. I think Dalot was quite poor, and he didn't. He looked very confused because, and again, like Amorim said at the end of the game, he's used to playing right or left back, tucking into midfield, doing the kind of the extra man in midfield that a lot of top teams do recently, and his formation asks for the wingers to be basically hugging the touchline throughout the whole game. And so you could see Dalot, I think, had a poor game both defensively and going forward. So there was some bright sparks. I think Ahmad looked like he'd been playing that position for a long time. I think he really impressed. I think Bruno was really, really efficient and economical with the ball. He did. I couldn't remember any Hollywood balls, and everything pretty much he kept under control and did the short, simple passes. So that's what we want from Bruno, right? But it didn't sacrifice his creative ability because he still was playing really accurate long balls over the top to set Garnacho free. He just didn't seem like he got it and like launched it every time, which we've seen from him for the last year and a half, 2 years maybe. So there were positives and negatives, but yeah, ultimately I think a draw is probably fair. And like you said, some giddy United fans are probably going to be a little bit deflated. Some rival fans who kind of were watching those United fans go over the top are probably going to be laughing and thinking it's a bit of a humbler. But for the kind of fair-minded people that understand, what football's going to be like when you get a new manager and like strip back all the hype and stuff, I feel like it was as expected. I don't know what you thought of the game. What did you make of it?
No, I think we watched it together, so you know that I kind of thought I definitely felt I saw better patterns of play from the team. I felt like you were a lot more intentional about how you wanted to play on the ball, particularly, and I also like the kind of defensive formation. A big complaint I've always had about Man United is, and about England as well in the Euros. I had a big complaint about this too, which is leaving far too much space in between you and the closest man. And I don't think that's any way to defend unless you've got a bunch of Kyle Walkers that can really just eat up space and eat up ground. And I don't think you guys do. You really don't. I mean, outside of maybe now Ugarte, you don't have anyone that really eats the turf, right? Like you don't have some monster that's just able to make up ground really quickly. And I think as a result, when you leave so much space, it makes it really easy for another team, especially a well-organized team, to get in between the gaps and to make space for themselves. And it gives them too much time on the ball. And I think part of what you're talking about with Johnny Evans and not knowing how to, or not being able to close down as quickly as, maybe Amorim would favour, I think that's going to be critical. I don't think you've got a lot of profiles that suit like a high intensity closing down kind of football off the ball. And so it made sense that he played like a more compact defensive formation, and you could see a lot less space in between all of your players, which was really good. So overall, I thought I saw really promising things from the team. But the thing that you can't make up for with the system is the individual quality, right? You still need to be able to have people that can finish their dinner. You still need to be able to have people that can close down and have enough legs to do what they need to do. And you still need to have people that make the right runs. They go to the right places, right? And I think this is still the problem that Man United have, right? I think it will depend on how good of a coach he is and how good of a coach the rest of his staff are, um, to really get the most out of this team. Because I think the system can be fixed quite quickly, but the individual quality, the experience, the knowledge, all of that stuff will take a little bit longer. So, with people like Højlund, people like Xerxes, even people like Garnacho, teaching them in the case of Garnacho, teaching him how to finish his dinner. If he does that, then he's going to be like a 20 goal a season kind of winger, I think, because he gets in really good positions. With Højlund, he's got the finishing, but you just need to tell him where to go. Because I saw a bunch of, a couple of highlights basically of after when he came on yesterday, and he's just making the wrong runs. Like he's trying to go for the pullback when Xerxes already there for the pullback. And it's like, okay, just make a run into the box and try and actually get your head on the end of it. You're a number 9, do what Haaland does, get in the right places and you'll get goals. So if he can make each individual player a little bit better, I think he's going to have a great time at Man United. But I also think that some of the players he's not going to be able to get the best out of, and he's going to have to shift them and get new players in. So that was what I took from the game, really, is system already looks better. We'll probably keep getting better as you guys get more used to it. It won't always work against every team you play against because, as I've said before, there's so many different styles in the Premier League, really. Well, not even styles, but so many different tacticians and different ways of managers to neutralize certain threats. It's not going to work every week, and he's going to have to figure out things. And you know what I've said about Arsenal before. It's like having multiple styles of play is pretty critical in the Premier League. So, yeah, overall, I thought it was positive. Do you agree? I know that we talked about this before, and you've got a big gripe about people saying that Ten Hag had no style. But did you see kind of this new style with Amorim already from that first 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think the things he's been saying in the press conferences are I think a lot of people have taken them as him kind of trying to deflect or whatever when he says like playing with a back 3 and a back 4 is not that different. My formation, the 3-4-3 is not that different to a 4-3-3 and a 4-4-2, etc. And essentially, I don't disagree with him because I think you could see some similarities in terms of the good things of Amorim's first game was what you said. Like the defense and midfield was way more compact. So you didn't see a lot of people breaking lines, running through the whole, midfield like you did under Ten Hag. And so that compact nature, I think at the back end of last season, if you remember, like the last 3 or 4 games that we had in the league and the FA Cup final, Ten Hag's United were quite compact as well. We stopped conceding goals. You stopped conceding chances. So there are elements that that within all of this style of play conversation, there are a lot of similarities and a lot of parallels, and there are a lot of traits that are positives regardless of whatever the formation is that you always want to see in your team. And I think defensively, you always want to see your team compact, and attacking, you always want to stretch the play as much as you can. And I think from that sense, you saw a much better balanced system and style of play from Amorim yesterday. And you're right, I hate when people say there's no style of play under Ten Hag because there was. It just wasn't balanced and it was rubbish. And you had those big gaps and you had a very extreme style of play which didn't work, and people found and picked the holes in very easily. Whereas I think with this Amorim system, I think it's going to be a lot harder for teams to be able to completely rip it to shreds and destroy it the way that people were finding it easy to do with Ten Hag's system last year. And that's not me saying it's going to work against every team. I agree with you. I think there are going to be times where even with Amorim Sporting against City in the Champions League a couple of weeks back, you saw a much more defensive version of his 3-4-3. You saw the wingers sit a lot deeper and kind of spring on the counter-attack more than, for example, you saw Sporting against some other teams where they were favourites, right, when the wingers were higher up. So I think what you end up seeing is, kind of like an adaptation to that style of play and to that formation, depending on who the opponents are. I think he kind of probably erred a bit more on the defensive side yesterday, and I think that's more likely because, like you said, he's got a lot of players that are being put in a sink or swim situation, and so I think it's right for him, and I don't think it would be right to go more attacking, even if maybe in a year's time, if we were to play Ipswich, he might go more attacking when he has more confidence with the system and the players. But at this point in time, I think he chose the right option to be slightly more cautious and put like Dallo and Ahmad, who we talked about yesterday, being much more reliable defensively in those wing positions, rather than maybe in the future you might see a Garnacho or Rashford or someone more attacking in that position once the team feels more sturdy in this idea that he has. But no, I definitely saw it. But like I said, yeah, I think some people are expecting things to look like markedly different and it to be like, oh wow, look at this style of play. United are so much more different now than before. Whereas I don't think that will be the case. I just think you won't see the erratic nature and some of the big holes, like you said, that we saw under Ten Hag. But you will see some other traits which you may have seen at times, especially in the first season under Ten Hag and some of the good periods we had last year. So I'm not going to go big and massive on this, like, style of play versus no style of play thing, which I think a lot of other people are. But I think it was much better. Like you said, it was much more balanced and coherent. And as a United fan, I was less worried about, an attacker or a midfielder bursting through the middle, because it just, he seemed to plug those holes and the system naturally seemed to prevent those kind of scenarios. Even if there were a few moments where like Delap rinsed De Ligt or someone else, like it's inevitable. Those are one-on-ones that can happen in any system. But I think the things we remember last year from Ten Hag was, remember that Wolves game, first game of the season, when Cunha was just like, and then Mateus Nunes were like running through the middle of our pitch and there was no one within like 10, 15 yards of them. Like, you didn't see that yesterday. So I think that's a positive, man. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see FC for us, I think, for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
But it was encouraging, man. It was encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, to add to the encouragement, obviously, to have a manager that can actually express themselves well is a big change for you guys. It's very clear that Ten Hag was not a great communicator, at least in English. Let's give him some credit. And in Dutch, I'm sure he's riveting. But
Come
in
on,
English,
he was a great communicator, eh?
Yeah, and then when he was saying please instead of thank you and all kind of that. All right. So, but anyway, I think on that topic of having a slightly more charismatic manager, obviously he's been very, obviously as a Man United manager, you have to do all these things, but he seems to have been very open in his interviews. You know what? He's had many already. It's mental how many different bloody backgrounds I've seen him with over the last 24 hours since the end of that game. I'm just like, how have you managed to get into so many different situations to be interviewed by all these various different people? But I guess that is just part and parcel of being particularly the Man United manager, but also just the Premier League manager in general. So let's talk about that. So in his post-match interview with Sky Sports, I believe, obviously with Roy Keane right next to him, he gave an interview really going into depth about what happened in the performance, how the game was going. And obviously, it being at Ipswich's ground, very famous Ipswich co-owner, advertiser, I don't know whatever his relationship is with them, but Ed Sheeran manages to get into the picture and just awkwardly kind of stand there and make a comment that Amorim probably doesn't want to talk to me. And then Amorim confirms, no, I don't really want to. And yet he stands there for another probably 10, 15 seconds, just hugging on old Jamie Redknapp, just kind of awkwardly while Kelly Cates tries to figure out what to say and what to do. And obviously Amorim looks a bit awkward. And I've seen a lot of stuff come out. I think at the time you were getting a bit furious and I didn't manage to catch it at the time, but you seem to be getting pretty angry. And now I've seen various different Man United fans' reactions online saying that it was out of order from Ed Sheeran to come in and just randomly gate crash, and also to just kind of stand there awkwardly for such a long time while Amorim's getting interviewed in kind of essentially his first big Sky Sports interview post the Ipswich game. So what did you make of it? Do you think Ed Sheeran's really out of order? Do you feel bad for Amorim? Like, What do you think in general? Who's to blame? And yeah, do you think it matters that much?
Yeah, I'm going to start off this with Ed Sheeran, first of all. And then, but I will say, I was livid at the time and I was losing my mind, swearing a lot more than the F bomb that I just dropped. I was absolutely going nuts. But there's part of me that still feels that way. Like, he's a cheeky C word for jumping in like that and just lingering around. But at the same time, I've read some other like rival fans and Ipswich fans and other people talk about the situation and say, you know, the whole day was about United. It was the whole United circus, and everyone was interviewing Amorim and wanted to hear from them, and kind of Ipswich felt a little bit like overlooked in the whole situation. So from that perspective, I kind of get it. If I was in their shoes, I might be a little bit more like, yeah, I might have a bit more of a chip on my shoulder and kind of look at that and think it was class. But um, so I've tried to like get a bit more of a balanced opinion on it. But I mean, I just, to be honest, I don't even want to hammer Ed Sheeran because, like, at the same time, you know, it's banter. It's not that deep. It's, you know, it's not something to absolutely hold on to for the rest of your life. Although I'm probably going to try. Um, it's more like the broadcasters thing. Like, I was shocked. There's been some weird moments with Sky. Do you not remember? I think there was a game post game when Stormzy like rolled into the
Yeah, wearing a pair
analysis
of flip
and
flops.
was
I
hugging everyone
remember.
up. Yeah, wearing a
Yeah.
pair of Yeezys or whatever, and it was just the whole thing was amateurish, and that wasn't even negative to United because he's a big United fan and you know big him up and whatever else. But you just expect the broadcasters to be a bit more professional with it and not just like let random people just like come in and gate crash things and waffle rubbish. Because I mean, as much as you know, people rate Stormzy and he does a lot of great things in the community, he's not the best speaker. We've seen that famous like interview when he's on the radio and he's like blah 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 blah, blah and he has like a bloody like he completely loses his mind and doesn't know how to speak for like a good minute or so. So he's not the most, you know, he's not the best communicator when it comes to non-musical forms of communication. So, and he's nothing to do with sport. So it's all just like a big celebrity attention grab, try aim to go viral type situation, which I don't think the broadcasters should be in that game, really, to be honest. They're just supposed to show us the coverage, offer professional analysis, and keep it moving. But so Sky have form for that. So I'm more shocked at them just being like the amount of runners and people, you know, floor managers and people that I know that are at that game that can prevent it in the case of like, you know, imagine a crazed fan comes on there, which I know in the background Roy Keane was beefing with an Ipswich fan. There's clips of that going
In
around.
the car park.
If that guy
Yeah.
tried, yeah, in the car park. If that guy tried to come on and try and beef him or stab him or do something crazy, those guys would have stopped it. I know they've got people around them, security and floor managers and all these guys to stop it. So why, like, they obviously just allowed Ed Sheeran to come in and gate crash it because they were trying to create a viral moment. So I'm not even going to hammer Ed Sheeran as much as I think he's a twat for doing that. Because I get the whole, you know, the what I talked about earlier, like, you know, Ipswich have probably felt like they wanted a bit more attention in this game. Um, but at the same time, like Sky have totally allowed that. They've probably manufactured it, and it stinks. So I just thought it was very amateur, and probably a lot of people, a lot of United fans have gone, "Damn, that's the moment when Amorim's realised this is the circus he's rocking into." When Sky have set him up for Ed Sheeran to come and gate crash his first post match interview, because you say he looked awkward. I thought he looked livid. I thought if he had a chance, he would have tried to bloody strangle Ed Sheeran at that moment, like because he just jumped in, and you could see Ed Sheeran was like, "I don't think he wants to talk to you," like you said, and he was like, "No, I don't want to talk to you." And he was like, literally, he looked like he had steam coming out of his ears. Which, to be honest, I haven't seen Amorim look angry, even when you had Sky reporters in Portugal asking him to speak English and pee him off and disrespect him in other ways. He's always seemed to smile and kind of keep it pushing. But that's probably the most angry I've seen him so far. So yeah, I just thought the whole thing was amateur, man. I thought it was like the broadcasters desperately trying to manufacture a viral moment. And yeah, it stunk. And Ed Sheeran, yeah, don't like you anymore, mate. You can do one.
Oh, we've got another Leon Bailey situation on our hands, fellas.
Sancho,
I mean,
Bailey.
yeah, I'll say a couple of things about this. Number one, to famously quote Kanye West, I like some of Ed Sheeran's songs. What the does he know about football? You know what I mean? That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is that Sky they've got a history doing this, right? You talk about the Stormzy moment. They had bloody Noel Gallagher doing comms
No, that was
for a match,
TNT.
didn't they?
That was
TNT,
TNT.
sorry. But I mean, like in terms of the
TNT, yeah.
broadcasters, this is not like this is part and parcel of what goes on, right? We've seen them choose players, or not even players, sorry, just choose people that have got nothing to do with the sport to come in for these viral moments because that's how they get their crossover moments. That's how they get their social content and so on and so forth. So it's definitely kind of part and parcel of what seems to be happening with football right now. And I think there's obviously been a long history between music and sport, right? Particularly in America, but also starting to bleed over here too. So it doesn't surprise me all that much, but it's more just like it wasn't really a viral moment in my mind. Like it wasn't funny. It was just awkward, and I don't want to watch it again. Right? Like maybe a couple of people will watch it once just to see what happened, but there's nothing about that moment that makes me happy or like makes me feel entertained in any kind of way. It just feels awkward. It's like nails on a blackboard. I'm just like I don't want to look at this anymore because it just looks like Ed Sheeran's a bit dopey. It looks like he's probably had a couple of pints. Amorim's looking at the floor, touching his ear, as you say, kind of either slash, awkward slash angry. And then you've just got Roy Keane smiling, looking at it all, thinking like, what the hell is going on? And I think the angry thing probably tracks to why Roy Keane seemed to be like enamored by Ruben Amorim. He was just staring at him with a
I
smile on
thought
his
he
face
loved
the
him.
whole time.
Yeah, he loved him.
And it was just like he probably could see a bit of anger in him and thinking, yeah, this is my kind of manager. Because even without like really outwardly showing it, he had that kind of Fergie-esque, like you can see this guy, there's something going on in his head. So yeah, very funny moment. I think Kelly Cates dealt with it well because I mean, what's she supposed to do? Just tell bloody Ed Sheeran to jog on, and we'll talk to you later. I think she did her best to manage it. I think Jamie Redknapp did poorly. Even after Ed Sheeran left, he was just looking for him like a crazed fan the whole time, barely even listening to Ruben Amorim. And I'm thinking, have some respect. You stank both as a player and as a commentator slash pundit, right? All you got going for you is you're a good-looking geezer. You dress pretty well, but let's be honest. In terms of your content and what you say, you don't belong on that bloody panel, right? We could get a bar of soap with better bloody things to say about football than him.
Charisma.
So yeah, no. Overall, it was a funny moment, and I hope to see many more of these weird, awkward, funny moments for Amorim, just for banter. But I did kind of feel bad for him a little bit, and just in general for everybody on that panel, because it was a very strange and awkward moment. But anyway, let's move on now to the Arsenal Nottingham Forest game. It's obviously been a pretty poor couple of weeks for Arsenal. Not a couple of weeks, many weeks for Arsenal. And I've been pretty down on this pod as a result of that. But we will get into what I think is a slightly lighter topic, a happier topic of Arsenal beating Nottingham Forest 3-0 at home. We'll just recap slightly. Obviously, we came out of the blocks really, really well. I'll talk briefly just on who we started. So you saw a midfield of Jorginho, Marino, and Odegaard starting with, I believe, Trossard off the left, Gabby Jesus up front, and obviously Saka in the right, with Jurriën Timber at right back, Calafiori at left back, and no change to the goalkeeper or centre backs. So to start off, I mean, you saw me in the group chat. I was thinking, what the hell are we doing putting Gabby Jesus up front? I didn't even know that my man was fit. Like he is our version of Tyrell Malacia, essentially. Like I don't know if my man's alive, dead, injured, fit. I don't know what's going on with him. I love him, but I'm never certain. And as a result, I never really can bank on his match fitness. And he's had a couple of cameos where he's come on and just not really looked all that inspiring. So I was very worried about that. And then obviously Marino, Jorginho, Odegaard starting three in midfield did not excite me all that much, just because I felt like there's no enforcer in that midfield. So I was wondering, like, obviously Rice has got like a broken toe and whatever else, but like, where is the pace going to come from? Where is the ability to overwhelm other teams going to come from? But anyway, we started really well. We got a goal, an early disallowed goal Timber offside, I believe. And then we just kind of kicked on from there. I think Nottingham Forest had like a couple of little opportunities here and there, but we were really dominating a lot of the ball, a lot of the chances really, and it culminated really in a what I'm going to call a classic kind of Saka Odegaard link up, right? So Saka gets the ball down off of like a kind of an aerial ball. He's got an unbelievable knack of just like keeping control of something that looks like it's completely out of control, even like a little bit like Suarez previously, right? Like I don't know how, but he sometimes like toes it, shins it, and it's still in his possession, which is really strange. But he manages to keep it, flick it over to Odegaard, who I don't know what my man's doing, but he just does like a no-look kind of outside of the foot pass back to Saka. Saka runs round a couple of people. I think he's overdone it a little bit, and he ends up slapping it not into the top corner, but just across the goalkeeper, I think, where the goalkeeper was not expecting it to go. So that's 1-0. Very, very happy to see that. Sells gets challenged a lot more. Trossard, Odegaard, we have a couple of other good chances. We end up going into half-time with 1-0. And then, second half, we just came out of the blocks really well again. The Saka-Odegaard link-up again happening. Saka has the ball out on the right-hand side. Odegaard, nice little undercut or whatever they call it, manages to take a defender away, leave a big gap for Partey, who just slaps it into across the goalkeeper again, kind of like an outswinger, really. Curls it into the top left corner, and it ends up being 2-0. Not a lot of fans really want to talk about that goal or who scored it, so we'll leave that one alone. But then after that, we started to take our foot off the pedal a little bit. I don't know whether this was necessarily just because a couple of the players in the team aren't like super match fit. Maybe that contributed to it, or we just got a little bit complacent, which Arsenal definitely have done previously before. And they start to get a little bit back into the game, right? They have a couple of decent chances. They get some set pieces where obviously we expect to be pretty strong, but without the Rice in there, without some of the players that we'd expect are a bit more kind of pace and power in there, we worry about those set pieces, but luckily they don't come to anything. Then lastly, just to wrap up, Nwaneri comes off the bench and he ends up scoring a great finish. He really stays alert and manages to get one, I think, to the near post past Sells, and he makes it 3-0 to the Arsenal. So overall, I'll just start it off. I thought it was a great game from us. It is definitely the antidote to what we've been seeing previously, which is just low-scoring games, almost blunt in attack previously. It's a massive change to that, right? And I think Odegaard is really critical to that. But I'm also going to give a shout out to Jorginho too. I thought Jorginho he's underrated for us. I think, right, like I've moaned about him a lot. Mainly in the 22-23 season where I thought he was just not really going to do anything for us. But he's really a dictator of tempo. And I think, without him there, without Odegaard there, we really lack something in terms of on-the-ball kind of control and dictating tempo. So to have both of them back was mental. I felt like we were so much better on the ball. We were so much better in attack. We managed to break people down. We managed to get balls into the right area of the pitch. And then obviously, again, the Odegaard-Saka link-up is critical, right? And I showed you the heat map for Odegaard previously, right? And he spends a lot of time next to Saka. Some people say it's detrimental to Saka, but in my opinion, especially when we're playing against a lot of teams now that double and triple team Saka, it's really critical that you have another threat around him, right? And without Ben White there to do the overlapping to try and take a defender away, we need somebody to be helping him. And I think that's something that Odegaard really does. He manages to take defenders away, give Saka a bit of time and space, and they manage to get their 1-2s and really kind of offer up a bunch of opportunities for Saka to put away. And one of the things that Saka really is getting better at and has been getting better at over the last couple of years is being clinical. And I think now if you get him chances in the right positions, he more often than not, he's going to score or at least get the ball on target, right? And test the goalkeeper. So that was a massive change for me. On top of that, I thought Gabby Jesus looked good, man. I don't, I can admit when I'm wrong. And I honestly thought, having Havertz up there, I've become kind of used to it now. But to have that extra dimension, again, I've said it before, I want us to be able to play different styles. And Gabby Jesus definitely offers something very different to Kai Havertz, right? In terms of energy, in terms of closing down, in terms of on the ball, dribbling ability, etc., etc. So it really was nice to see him back as well. So I'm quite happy with him too. And then obviously Leandro Trossard, back to where he should be playing. Right? I don't want to see him in the 10 again. I've said it many times. In a 10, he's a 3, but left wing, up front, right wing, I'm happy with him. He's an 8 out of 10 most games. So let's keep him there. Don't put him back into the cam position because Arsenal fans will start to beef him, right? And we know that Arsenal fans, myself included, can jump on the back of players really quickly, right? So keep him out of the positions where he's going to stink it up because otherwise Arsenal fans will start to jump on his back and then we get the confidence issues. We get issues with him, not being wanted or not feeling valued in the team. So Arteta, it's on you, mate. Stop playing him where he stinks. Keep him on the left wing as an option for Martinelli when Martinelli's not firing. So yeah, overall very happy with the game. But Anthony, how did you see it, mate? Did you think the same thing in terms of Arsenal's play? Did you think we looked a lot better now with Odegaard back?
Yeah, no. So the two questions we had on the docket was around the two things you discussed, right? I think agree with you completely. Odegaard back in your attack or in your midfield just changes the whole face of everything. Everything knits together better. You see a lot more, little triangles and little patterns of play, which are a lot more fluid. The ball moves quicker. Things are a lot of 1-2 touch football between him and Saka and whoever's in the little triangle that he's playing in, and everything just moves together. He's the glue that brings all of your attack together, and it's honestly night and day. No Odegaard, and Odegaard in that position you're two different teams in attack. Anyway, I don't want to say defense or whatever because your defense generally stays pretty stable regardless of if Odegaard's there or not. But as an attacking unit, you're just not the same. You're completely different. So, yeah, it's a huge difference having him in the team. And God, he's come back and it's really important to get him back because some people think the title's gone already. I'd say it's you've put yourself really close on the brink. So him coming back now and pretty much picking up where he left off is really, really, well timed from your perspective. So yeah, Odegaard, man. I saw some funny stuff from different content creators comparing Odegaard to some other creative players in years gone by, and I do think there's a little bit of disrespect on Odegaard's name in terms of how important he is to your team. A lot of people discuss him and say he's going to be the heir apparent to De Bruyne, and I don't know. I don't know about that because I think people are putting De Bruyne in all-time categories. So, that's a really high bar. But what I will say is he is the same level of importance to your team as De Bruyne was prime time when he was in his best heyday, right? Everything goes through Odegaard. Saka, I saw someone also describe Arsenal as Saka in set pieces without Odegaard. That's the way that you guys are going to be able to win games. But as soon as Odegaard comes in, it's just a totally different situation. You saw Jesus start, bouncing the ball around. You saw Trossard looks totally different because one thing you did say about Trossard, and I kind of agree, but at the same time, I also kind of agree with Arsenal fans. I feel like it was right to get on his back. He was poor. It didn't matter where he was playing when Odegaard wasn't around. 10 up front, false 9, left wing. He just wasn't performing. Right, and it almost now looks like he was. I don't know if it's by design. If Arteta said to him, you need to create and you need to do this when Odegaard's not around, but it looked like he felt like he had to put you guys on his back, and he's not that guy. Right, Trossard is not Odegaard. He's a very good player, and he comes up with big goals, and he's a great finisher, but he's not an Odegaard, right? So I think he was doing too much, and you saw that a lot when Odegaard was out. It visibly looked like he was just trying to, he's taking pot shots, trying to do 45-yard pingers and all that stuff. It's like, no, Leandro. Stick with what you're really good at, which is little intricate play and finishing, chances, which you're really good at, and you can be effective. So I feel like the Arsenal fans were right to get on his back. But one thing you do see is now, even Trossard plays much better when Odegaard's there, and he's bouncing the ball off him and playing with him. So, Odegaard is he's so deeply connected in that attack that, you see it now even more. I know he's been out for a few games in the past, but this is the longest period I think you guys have had with him out. This 6-8 weeks or whatever it's been. And my God, do you now realise how important, even more so than before he is to your attack? because I would say this was your best performance of the season so far. Because Forest are a good team, man. They're really hard to break down, and a lot of teams have struggled with them. Just ask Arnie Slot, right? Like that game was a totally deserved victory for Forest at Anfield, right? But you guys absolutely from the first whistle, like suffocated the living hell out of them. And I can't remember a chance they had. You're being a little bit kind to Forest. I know there was a Jota last minute that got disallowed, and there was some set pieces and stuff, but there was not one moment where it felt like they were going to score. And I don't remember Raya doing diddly squat. So you absolutely you just overwhelmed the hell out of them, and it was totally deserved 3-0, man. I was livid at the end because I got so close to a correct score for my predictions, and I desperately needed it. And bloody Wanyeri came in and tapped it home in the bloody 85th plus minute. But you deserved it, man. It was a really good performance. If I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be cautiously optimistic now because it's still an uphill struggle with kind of the disappointing results you've had in the last month and a half or so. But if this is any sign of what's to come, as long as you keep those attackers fit, I think you're onto something. I do want to also give a massive shout out to who I've mocked in terms of aura and his name and all that kind of stuff. Calafiori was very good at left back. I thought he was really, really good. And when you have Timber playing in the team, who we've discussed like off cam and outside of the pod, as being a really functional, very good defensive player, but not offering that much going forward. Having Calafiori on the other side, the same with Ben White when he's in his pomp when he's fit on the right hand side when they swap over, they're really good going forward, bro. Like Calafiori was bombing forward, overlapping. He was playing balls through the lines. I was really impressed with him, man, and I think he's going to end up being a really good signing for you guys. As long as he can keep fit, that's the only dodgy thing about him, unfortunately. He's got he picks up niggles and stuff like that. But I was really impressed with him, and I don't see too many people chatting about Calafiori. I thought he was really good. So I don't know what you made of that.
Yeah, no, I'll start out just saying, the question of was it our best performance of the season? I think in the Premier League, yes. I am going to still put our 2-0 win over PSG up there with the best of overall this season. But I think they're close. And that's just really down to the quality of opposition, because in the PSG game, they also had quite a few chances that they probably could have came out of that game with maybe a better result. But obviously, 2-0 against PSG to me it's not something I see Arsenal do very often. So, especially the Arsenal of old. So I will put it up there as our best performance so far in the season, and that's just really, in the Premier League at least, and that's really just because we've been poor in the Premier League, man. Like we got wins against Aston Villa, sure, but we didn't really necessarily deserve it, which was the big funny thing, right? Draw against Liverpool, wins against Southampton, and stuff like that. But I've not really been too enthused about what I've seen from the Arsenal team in terms of actual performance, right? I've been relatively happy with the start in terms of results, but the performances weren't up to scratch. And this one, I think, was the first I've seen that was more in the pattern of what we did last year. And damn straight, because we bloody needed it, right? In terms of where we are in the league, in terms of where the general sentiment is about the team, we needed a win and we needed a big one. So I'm really happy to see that, especially against Nottingham Forest, who are kind of the darlings, let's say, of this first few game weeks of the new season. Really, like they've come out and been really, really good. They've upset teams. They've played really well, defended especially very, very well, and not really conceded. And then they've obviously had some really good performances from their kind of front three as well. So overall, to get a win against them, I think if you just look at the name, maybe you don't think it's all that good. But based off of how they've been defending, it's the first time I think that they've let 3 goals in this season, or maybe the second time. So it's not easy to put 3 goals past them. And there was also, I've got to say one more thing really is, we see a lot of stuff online about the Arsenal team and, Arteta and all these different conversations happening on YouTube and on Twitter and etc. But you could see in the stadium, and I've heard it from now a couple of fans that were there, just saying like, no one here is questioning anything about Arteta. It's only you bellends online that are talking about this and talking about that, right? We're still happy as Larry. He's still done an amazing job for us, and we're not just going to turn our backs on people. So it's just important to get that kind of like sobering perspective every now and then when you see all these bloody Arsenal stands or like Arsenal fans on bloody Twitter talking rubbish about, oh, if Arteta doesn't get, you know, a major trophy this year, he's got to go. And I'm thinking, you shouldn't be allowed to speak, let alone bloody talk about football, right? Like you should have to get permission to speak because you talk out your ass most of the time. But yeah, I mean, on the point about Calafiori, he looks really good, man. I'm really happy with him, and you know it kind of loads me to say this because I really don't like signings off the back of international tournaments. For the most part, they absolutely stink, and I think you saw that in the, you know, in Enzo Fernandez's performances for the last however long since he went to Chelsea. Right, he's been rubbish. Even though in this recent game he was actually decent, but other than that, he's been pretty rubbish. So you know that I'm not a big fan of these kinds of signings, especially off the back of like one international tournament. But I've got to say he's looking good, and I'm optimistic about him, especially because that left back position has given me so much heartache over the last couple of years with bloody having to rely on Zinchenko and then Tierney being injured all the time and never really getting a chance. It's been such a position of angst for me. And now we've got bloody Zinchenko coming out and trying to give away all of Arteta's secrets. So I think we need to cut my man off immediately, and we need him under NDA. Do not talk ever again. Go somewhere else and be quiet, right? Because my man's just trying to give the game away. Chatty patty. What is his autobiography even going to be about? Like dancing on TikTok with some little kid or crying on a pitch? Like, get this man away from the pen. But yeah. Yeah, no, Calafiori looks good. I'm happy about it. If he can stay fit, as you say, I'm going to be really happy because we've, you know, the other good left back option that I thought we had was always like Tomiyasu, but he's never bloody. He's another one of our Malassias. We've got many Malassias, and he's another one. I don't know where he is. Like honestly, we need to have
back,
like
mate. Don't
do you remember? Was it find?
He's on the bench.
Was it find Coney 2012? I need to find Tomiyasu 2024. Where is my man? You know, he's dyeing his hair more than he's played games for Arsenal. Right? He's had more hair colours than games.
Don't start Souness. Don't start Sounessing. Don't get into the dyeing hair, all right? All right, Jonty Souness, chill out, all right? You're right on Zinchenko. Zinchenko stinks. And I've been warning you for bloody ever about Zinchenko. You used to do your little defensive Arsenal fight.
Because you put him in the category of now, Trent Alexander-Arnold defending.
I would argue Trent.
He was way better than Trent at defending, specifically.
No, I would argue Trent's a much better defender than Zinchenko.
He is now, yes. Now, in the light of day, that looks like a better shout. But back in the day, it was all right. I had precedent.
No, mate, I'm a visionary. You just don't want to see. You don't want to see it, mate. You don't want to see it. With Zinchenko, I'm right, man. With other teams, I'm generally like I stink, and I can be biased with United, of course. But for you guys, I feel like I've always been pretty fair and tried to see things like, you know, openly with my eyes about what's going on. And Zinchenko reeks, and it's very, very much a blessing that you've got Calafiori. Like you said, as long as you can keep him fit. If you can get Timber, you can get White back afterwards, and somehow manage to get Tomiyasu, you know, get sent to Pep's secret doctor or something and get him back to fitness. Then those four are really good options. Exactly, because all four of them can play centre back. All four of them can play both left and right back. That's great cover, man. You just cut your losses with Zinchenko. If you started doing this, you know, Piers Morgan-esque interviews and stuff like that, you need to get him out of it. That's when you know someone's finished. No, man. I think, Calafiori. I think he looks like a really good player, man. So, I think
he just reminds me of a left-sided Ben White. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something about him that's just very. Yeah. He's better on the ball, though. I feel like he's slightly better on the ball, but slightly worse defending wise.
That's harsh on White.
No, I know, but I mean, I think White in terms of his dribbling is really good, but I mean, in terms of like the line breaking passes. I think that wasn't necessarily in White's bag. White was better at like crossing balls into the box, and I think the overlap around the outside of Saka was really, really good. But with Calafiori, I start to see like maybe a lot across the ground. His passing seems to be a little bit better, but defensively he does lack a little bit in comparison to White. I think White was more of a lockdown defender than Calafiori's been so far, but obviously he's getting used to English football and the speed of it. and he's obviously come up against some pretty good players so far. So we'll see about him. I'm hoping that we can keep him fit, and then the jury will be out. I don't want to go too soon on him because I know you've got a pet peeve about Arsenal going too soon on defenders. So we'll leave that one there. But let's move on now to the previews for next week or this week already started, both in Europe but also in the Premier League next weekend. So we'll start with, I guess, the earliest game, which is Sporting against Arsenal, which is a funny one. That there's a link there. Old Ruben Amorim's former team, who beaten us a couple of times and also injured us a couple of times, coming up against Arsenal away for us. So it's at Sporting's ground. How do you see this one going, mate? Arsenal not doing too bad in the Champions League. Obviously, we're coming off of maybe not such a great result, but we aren't doing terribly in the Champions League in terms of our position. How do you think we'll do against Sporting?
It's a tricky one, man, because Sporting are absolutely cooking up a storm. They won on the weekend again without Amorim, Gyökeres, Marcus Edwards was firing as well, ex-Tottenham youth player. They've got some good players. And that stadium, you can just ask
second, mate.
Ask Pep.
Yeah.
Ask Pep what it's like going to their stadium, because they absolutely tore City to shreds. And I know with more evidence that we've seen recently, it doesn't take an amazing team to do that if Spurs manage to slap them up. But Sporting were good, man. And I think it will be hard. I think going to Portugal is one of these underrated away trips that people don't talk about. It's difficult, bro. Porto away used to be difficult back in the day. I think you guys went there last season and it was difficult for you guys. I remember, I think they scored a last minute goal and beat you. Benfica away is hard, so there's no reason for me to believe Sporting's not going to be difficult either. And one thing I will say is you're not doing badly in the Champions League, but if you get a bad result in this one, you're firmly going to be back in with the pack. No, well, I think you'll still qualify, but you'll just go through the middle block.
Yeah, it'd be like a second place finish.
If you win it, then I think you're back on track to try and get maybe one of the top 8 positions and go straight through to the last 16. But I don't think it's. This is the thing with this new Champions League format. The jeopardy's not even there, man. I'm looking at RB Leipzig. I think they've lost all 4 games so far, right? Which stinks because they're definitely not that bad of a European team, right? They should definitely be at least in that middle block. But if they win their last 4, they will be in the middle block. So the jeopardy's not even there. You could literally have an all-time stinking half of one of the qualifying of this group stage and then still get through. So, I think it's going to be a really difficult game, man. I'm actually going to go for a Sporting win, but I think it will be really close and I could easily see it being a draw. The only thing I will say is away from home in Europe, you guys are not fantastic. Like you drew with who did you draw with in the opening game? You drew with Atalanta, and you should have lost that. They missed a pen. You've lost to Inter away in the last game, even though that was a disgusting decision to give a pen against you and not give a pen for you. So you're away from home in Europe is not your greatest strength. So I'm gonna go for Sporting to win 2-1, but like I said, I don't think you'd be too stressed either way because you've got time to recover it. You've got more home games to win and manage to get through at least in that mid block. But what about you? What do you think the score will be?
Yeah, I mean it's hard because Sporting have been basically flawless in everything. Whether it's against slightly worse competition in the Portuguese league or bloody Champions League football against Man City, PSV, Lille, etc. I will say that the Champions League, apart from Man City, has been a little bit of an easier run-in. They've had like bloody Sturm Graz. Who else is there? Lille. Like these aren't, in my opinion, the strongest teams that they're going to come against. But obviously they put City in a spliff pretty easily. So I'm in 2 minds. But you know what? I'm going to back Arsenal. I'm going to go for an Arsenal win. I'm going to say 2-1 Arsenal. And I just think that this is going to be maybe the beginning of a decent run for us. And I think obviously Sporting give away chances, right? Like, I mean, against Man City, there were chances, right? And Man City probably should have scored. But from my point of view, we are usually better defensively than they are. So I think we will give away fewer chances than Man City did against Sporting. Obviously, Gyökeres, if he gets a chance, we're going to be in trouble. But I also feel like Gabriel and Saliba are the right kind of defenders to deal with a Gyökeres type of striker. We've seen him, we've seen us do it, those two do it against really good opposition previously. I don't think he is necessarily the type of striker that causes them as many problems. And in saying that, I know that he'll go and bang in a hat-trick tomorrow or something, but I'm just going to say that generally that profile of striker, I feel like, is in Gabriel and Saliba's wheelhouse, if that makes any sense. So if they are going to get joy, I don't necessarily think they're going to get it from him. They might get it from, one of their 2 10s. So, we'll see how things go, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Arsenal win. But let's move on to Man United against Frodo Glimt and that, the Lord of the Rings dons that you're playing. This is at home for Man United, so it'll be Ruben Amorim's first Old Trafford match as manager / head coach of Man United. How do you think that one's going to go? Surely you've got to see a win coming from this one, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great fixture for him to have as the the second one after that Ipswich game, just because I think we need to try and get all the kinks out as soon as possible, and I think these first 3 games that he's got as head coach, he couldn't have asked for better, really, to be honest. Ipswich away, I know they're much, they're the best of the promoted teams, and they gave us a good game yesterday, but you could see, even with players not understanding the system, we had enough quality to at least get a draw, and maybe could have got a win as well. And I think with Bodo Glimt, you're going to have a similar scenario. Like, they're going to be a good opposition to give us enough of a test and offer a training ground kind of opportunity in terms of getting the system and the style of play ready. No, like, honestly, I mean it. I'm not, if we were playing, I don't know, Leverkusen, or I know they're not even in the Europa, but let's say like one of the better European teams, even like the Fenerbahces and who else have we played recently? We had a couple of tough away games where we drew them. Yeah. If we had one of those games, that would be rough. I could imagine us taking the L, trying to practice a new system and style of play in that kind of atmosphere and in that kind of scenario. But Bodo Glimt offers a good opportunity for us to, as Ruben Amorim keeps saying, get data on the players and see them in the positions and see how they're performing. So I think they'll give us. A really good game. I don't expect it to be a whitewash. I expect them to still cause us issues, and for some of our players to still drop clangers and stinkers and not perform the best. But I do think we'll get the W, and I think hopefully we'll see, us building on the performance against Ipswich and still being compact but creating chances and the players getting used to the style and the ideas that Ruben Amorim's trying to give them. So I'm going to go for United to win 2-0, but I think it won't be smooth sailing, and there will definitely be moments where I'm frustrated and United fans are frustrated by us missing chances, making the wrong decisions, because I honestly think that's going to be the thing that's going to take us the longest to eradicate, and will probably cause Amorim to look more to the transfer market or to the youth team to correct, is us being able to make the right decisions, because I don't know if you can teach that into someone or train that into someone. I think they either have to mature and then start to understand and gain more knowledge football wise, or they don't, and I think that's something you can't predict. So yeah, I think
especially with
2-0,
such a sheer, like a large
slappy
amount of players, right? Like, it's hard enough teaching one player, not teaching all of them. Yeah. But yeah, so you said you're going to go for a 2-0 win. It's weird, right? Because Bodo Glimt have had a weird one so far, because I swear they've beaten like Porto, like in the first week of it, they beat Porto, and I think they beat Braga away as well. But then they've lost to bloody carrier bag, and you're just like, what the hell is going on with these guys? So I don't know. Like, it's a weird one. Like, if of any team, Man United, like if you're a small team or maybe like an obscure team go into a big team, of any of the ones that you want to go to, Man United is probably at the top of that list, right? In terms of your form recently, right? It's one of the places where you think you might be able to get a result. But I feel like under Amorim, you're gonna be a much harder team to play, right? And I think you saw it in the Ipswich game. Like you give up a couple of opportunities here and there, but you do need to be really clinical. You're not going to get loads, and Onana's going to be. He's looking like he's going to be an absolute nuisance to try and get past. So I don't know if they've necessarily got the quality to beat you. So I also think it's going to be a Man United win. I'm probably going to go for. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Man United win. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think defensively you're a lot tighter, but attacking wise you're still not clinical enough. Unless Ahmad just goes on a mad one. But who knows? I was going to say one last thing. Just like I think you and Bodo Glimt are quite close to each other in the table. Where do you think this puts you if you do get a bad result? Like I think they're actually a little ahead of you. They're like 12th and you're 14th or something. But where do you think it would put you if you don't get a result?
It's just, the same applies to what I said to you guys in the Champions League, right? Like we've had 2 draws, 2 wins. We've still got a really good shout to qualify in the top 8 if we win our remaining home games and get positive results in the away games.
I think you've only had 1 win, mate. You've had 1 win and 3 draws.
Have we? Oh yeah, because we drew at home to 20. That's right. Yeah. So but even in that scenario, like if we win the couple of home games that we've got, and I think we've got some on paper slightly easier away games left now. I think the first 3 games we had were like the toughest ones that we had in the whole 8.
Yes.
So
yeah, you've got easier games from now on out.
Yeah. So even if we finish with, let's say, like 5 wins and 3 draws, or 4 wins and 4 draws, we'll at least be safely in that mid block and qualify through to the last 32 and do the playoff. But I think we should be aiming to try and get 4 wins now in these remaining 4 games, and then I think if we do, we probably will sneak into 8th or 7th or something like that, and manage to qualify directly. So I'm not that bothered. I think if we draw this game, it will severely damage our hopes of automatically qualifying. But even then, I still think we'd easily qualify for the middle block, because what is it, like 9th to 24th or something all qualify. So we'd have to be monumentally shite to not qualify from this group.
Yeah. I mean, so I think it's all quite tight in the middle, right? I think this is where teams start to really separate themselves, because I think you and 4 other teams are all on 6 points. And then there's 5 teams ahead of you that are all on 7 points. So, I mean, if you get a win here, depending on other results, that could put you up to like 9th. So, and that would be nearly the top group of the first 8 teams.
Yeah.
So you've got some decent fixtures from now on out. I think Bodo Glimt, then Victoria. Then you've got Rangers at home, actually, which is not so bad. And then you've got FCSB. So these are your easier fixtures, but it's just going to pile on the pressure a little bit to actually make sure you get results at all of them. But it could also be a nice little punching bag kind of test for Amorim, right? To have some of the more difficult games out of the way.
Good.
Yeah.
No,
anyway, let's get on to.
I think the way the fixtures, fixtures have landed is good for us.
Yeah. No, I think it's kind of like Arsenal start to the season. It seems like we had a lot of like harder games coming up, and then now we've seemed to have a pretty good run from now until the end of the Christmas break. So yeah, it's funny how the fixture and the way that fixtures are chosen can really have a complete different effect on the way your season looks. And so it really can be difficult to balance out how you judge things based off of that. So, but anyway, let's move on to West Ham Arsenal as the first kind of Premier League game of the weekend. This is going to be at West Ham's ground, so it's not the easiest game for old Arsenal. West Ham seem to have been stabilising a little bit. I can't remember what their result was. Oh no, they're playing today, right, against Newcastle. So we'll see how they do against Newcastle today. But I feel like they've been stabilising slightly over the last few games. I feel like they got a good win. Can't remember who it was against, but I feel like they got a good 3-1 win against someone decent. Whether it was, I don't know if it was Bournemouth or Brighton or somebody decent, they got a good win against. But obviously they've had a pretty shocking start to the season outside of that, and Lopetegui has a lot of pressure on him right now. He's kind of lucky to still be in a job, really, given Steve Cooper and some of the other kind of sackings we've seen already. But I think I'm going to go for a, in my opinion, an Arsenal win. Again, I think that we're going to come on leaps and bounds. We're going to keep on pushing on from where we're going and where we've, that let's say the low position that we've been in over the last few weeks. And again, as long as we can keep everyone fit, as long as everybody comes back and comes back from their injuries on time, I think we will continue to get quite a lot of wins over this period between now and the end of the year. So I'm going to go for an Arsenal. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Arsenal win. It's not going to be easy, I don't think. I think West Ham will have a couple of chances. Mikel Antonio is going to do his best to put a dent into the Saliba-Gabriel partnership, but I just think that we're going to have more quality than them. They've been defending diabolically so far this season. So, yeah, I think we're going to have enough to put stuff past them. Again, I'm going to rely on Odegaard and Saka to really bring us out of the mud. So, yeah, I'm going to go for an Arsenal 3-1 win. How about you, Ant?
Yeah, I think you're going to batter West Ham. I think they're not a good team, and it's startling because they've actually got a lot of good players.
They do.
So I know we've had conversations about, we've had this conversation with like insert the team name here, like Leicester, Southampton. We've talked a lot about, how good teams really are and analyze their players and stuff. West Ham are, I think, the team that you think a lot like Leicester, Southampton, a lot of other teams are. They've actually got a decent squad, and a lot of the players, when you look at them, have recently been very good for other teams or even for them last season.
Yeah.
But the way they're set up and the style of play and this Lopetegui guy, it reeks. And I think, it's mad because yesterday when you told me about Steve Cooper being sacked, I was kind of shocked, but at the same time, you can't really argue with it too much because Leicester have been quite poor. But it plays into the argument I've made where I think Leicester have got like a really average to rubbish team, and Steve Cooper's kind of been screwed up. Whereas I think with Lopetegui, they've spent peas.
Yeah.
And they've really tried to develop a strong team for him, and they've got some ballers in there: Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta. They've got Alvarez in midfield. They bought Kilman, who I think is a really good defender.
Got Tadibo,
They've
a lot of people were after Tadibo as well.
Yeah, we were after him. If it wasn't for that UEFA law about selling or buying between part owned clubs, we wouldn't have been able to. We would have probably got him instead of maybe De Ligt or someone else. So.
Yeah,
They've dropped a lot of money to try and transform that team for him, and he's done rubbish. And I honestly feel like of all managers this season, I think Ten Hag deserved to be sacked. Sure, I think the other manager that really deserved to be sacked is Lopetegui because if you consider the factors, he's done really badly with that team. I know they've had a few wins recently, but they just don't inspire any confidence whatsoever. And I think,
and I mean, now that I say that, they beat you, but then they lost to Nottingham Forest 3-0 the next week, and they just drew with Everton. So I don't know about stabilising because they got pumped by bloody Tottenham 4-1 the week before that. They just seem to be up and down constantly.
Yeah, and if you remember that United game, we should have battered them.
Yeah,
we should have been about 3-0 up at half time. So they caught life with that, and but at the same time, we probably caught life because if we'd have won that, Ten Hag's probably still in the job. So we both caught life with that one. But they're poor, man. And I think even if the result in midweek goes the way I'm predicting it, and you lose to Sporting, I don't think it will affect your confidence massively, and I don't think it will affect your chances of battering West Ham because I just feel like I imagine how you played against Forest. If you replicate that performance in any shape or form or get close to it against West Ham, you're hammering them. Pardon the pun. It's going to be a really, really easy victory. So I'm predicting that will come to fruition, and I think you'll win. I'm going to go for 3-0 again. So I'm going to go back-to-back 3-0 wins for you in the league. I think I'm just looking at Saka, Odegaard. If you bring Havertz back, with some crosses and set pieces, I think you're gonna have it's gonna be like work for you guys. I think you're gonna put them to the sword and get the win easily.
Yeah, hopefully we can smash a couple of goals past some ex-Arsenal lot in terms of Mavropanos and old Fabianski, who seems to still be their goalkeeper. It will be interesting to see, and let's hope for my sake at least that we pump them because I mean I'd love to see an 8-0 win, but yeah, I'll take anything I get in terms of a win in general. But let's move on to Man United Everton. two teams that I've been pretty disparaging about this season so far. Man United at home against Everton, who seem to be they've picked up form slightly, right? Because they started not very well either. But you can always rely on old Sean Dyche to get them going again, and they seem to have stabilised a little bit. A nice little 0-0 ball draw this weekend, but Dwight McNeil seems to be pulling them out the mud quite frequently recently. So it's not as easy a game as it might have been in game week 2 or 3 for Man United, because Everton are starting to get a little bit better. But how do you kind of see the game going? If you combine this with what you think is going to happen in the midweek, how do you think this game could go? And do you see Man United coming out on top?
Yeah, so I think this, again, like I said earlier, I think this is a good fixture for us to have next in terms of the Premier League. Not because I think Everton are a bad side. I think they're actually okay. And I was quite surprised to see them lose so many games at the beginning of the season. But I probably was a bit naive to think, be surprised by that, because Everton, pre-Dyche, now during Dyche era as their manager, they are quite a streaky team. So they go through runs where they lose loads of games, and then they'll go through runs where they just get wins and when you least expect it. I think last season they beat Liverpool. They beat a couple of teams back to back, and it was what the hell's happened? Because before that they looked really bad. So at the moment, like you said, they're looking a bit more stable. They're looking like they've kind of found a bit more balance, and the new players have been integrated, and things are a little bit more settled. So
yeah,
I don't expect this to be a walkover. I don't expect us to be at the stage with the new style of play and the new ideas and the players coming back and stuff like that at a point where we're going to really click and things are going to be, going to be easy for us. So I still think it's going to be a game where you see people struggling, people adapting, people learning on the job. Like Amorim said yesterday in his post-match, people still kind of looking a bit confused and
overthinking.
and having
right?
too much.
Mentioned
Yeah, too much in his head,
too much,
yeah. I think you'll still see some of that, but I think the individual quality that we have should be enough to get us over the line against Everton. I don't think we'll get a clean sheet. I think they generally always find a way to score. I think last season they didn't, but a couple of seasons back, they either got draws or scored at least a couple of goals against us and made it difficult. So I don't see us getting a clean sheet, despite Onana's best efforts. But I think we'll get enough. We'll get enough chances that we'll convert at least a few, and we'll get the win. So I'm going to go for United to win 2-1, but I think it won't be smooth sailing, and but it will be another good opportunity for us to practice the new ideas and style of play that Amorim wants to play. But yeah, good fixture list, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think it's the best you could hope for a new manager in terms of fixtures coming in, right? You don't want to be having bloody Liverpool and Man City straight off the bat, so it's good. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why they sacked Ten Hag when they did, right? Let's give Amorim a proper chance and give him a proper way to bed in. So yeah, I think similarly from my point of view, I think you will win. They don't let in that many goals though, so I'm only going to go for a 1-0 because I think over the last 4 matches they've had three of those matches they've let in no goals. I think they let in one against Southampton. But they've drawn the last 2 0-0, and I think they drew the game against Southampton 0-0 as well. So they're not the easiest to put a goal past. And obviously, most recently they drew against Brentford, who are a good attacking team, right? They've scored a decent number of goals already this season. So yeah, I think I'm going to go just for a 1-0 to Man United. I think you'll put a goal past them, but I think defensively they won't. You won't have a shocker. And I think they're poor at scoring, man. Like honestly, without Dwight McNeil, they've got no threat going forward, right? Like Beto finally scored a goal for them, and I felt really bad because I saw him come out in the interview and kind of almost cry because the fans have been getting on him so much. And I expected big things from him because when he first came on, he looked really good. But I mean, outside of him, that team is just void of any kind of attacking threat. Dominic Calvert-Lewin just still riding off them Gillette coattails. My man can't stay fit and can't score. They need to sack him off and get a better striker. But yeah,
they should need to let Beto play. This is the thing with Everton. It frustrates
Beto is
me.
a prime Premier League striker. If you look at the size of him and the way that he plays, that is a Sean Dyche striker if I've ever seen one.
And he does all right when he comes on and when he plays. Like, so the thing is, Calvert-Lewin's contract's running out. He's not re-signing, right? So he's ready to pack his bags and jog on. So why do they persist playing him? When he plays, he's rubbish as well. So honestly, I think you just don't play Calvert-Lewin. Send him to the under-21s. Let Beto start. Have the Chimiti guy on the bench, the youngster that they bought a few seasons back, and just go with that, because that's most likely going to be their future. And I think it's good enough to keep them up. Beto's not a bad player, man. He's every time he comes on, he's a nuisance, and he does score a goal here and there. And I'm pretty sure he would score more if you gave him a good run in the team. Calvert-Lewin is one of the most overhyped players I've ever seen in my life. He had a little purple patch one season, and now he's got all the Gillette ads and all the stuff like you said, and he's pants. So I don't understand that.
No, I agree. I feel like him and Callum Wilson particularly just got like. I would argue Callum Wilson achieved more in terms of like goals and stats, but like they both got madly overhyped for a certain period, particularly Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and they've really not returned very much. And it kind of reminds me of like an NBA team that puts all of their stock into like their franchise player who's just crap, who's just like doesn't show up, is just not very good, and then they end up just being crap for the next 5 years or however long they've given them a contract. And it kind of reminds me of a bit of the Calvert-Lewin type of thing. Like there's other players they could have looked at, and from my point of view, he's just another one of those Everton English players that is just madly overhyped, up there with Jordan Pickford. So part and parcel, mate. But yeah, let's just wrap up quickly in terms of the scoreboard. So I believe it is 25-13 in my favour. Doesn't appear to be any change to the lead, right? Like we just seem to be tracking to the exact same point score every week now for the last few weeks. I don't think anyone's taking necessarily any risks really. But we do have an opportunity again this week to see some difference, right? Because we've got 3 results that are predicted to be the same overall outcome, but we've got one, the Sporting Arsenal game, where we've gone for different results. So that could be a way for you to claw back some points. And then outside of that, you just got to hope for a bunch of correct results, mate. We haven't gone for any exact same results on the other 3 games either. So you've got 3 opportunities there as well to try and grab some points back. So this lead can diminish really, really quickly, mate. If you start getting some correct results.
Don't give me hope.
Trust me.
Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope.
Trust me, man. You use 2 extra points.
I was so close.
It's only a 12-point difference, mate. You just need to get maybe six correct results where I don't, and then you're back in the game. It's a lot of games to play, mate.
Nah, this is some Arsenal title race copium you're trying to give me. I'm not falling for it. I'm telling you.
Come on, I need you back.
I'm aiming for Champions League. I'm aiming for Champions League.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you, and I think we'll wrap up the pod here. It's been a good one, slightly shorter than last week, obviously, but really, really good episode, and looking forward to next week's with a lot of football to play between now and then. But thank you very much, Ant. We'll see you next week, mate.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.